My parents tried to steal my lottery win to fund their golden child's future, ruining my life in the process. When I refused, they kicked me out, but karma had other plans. Hey Reddit. So, I'm going to tell you about the time my life got flipped upside down after I won the lottery, and how everything went from a dream to a nightmare in the blink of an eye. To give you some context, I'm 28 and, like many people, had always dreamed about winning the lottery. I had an average job in sales, not terrible, but certainly not life-changing. I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck, but I wasn't exactly swimming in cash either. Life was comfortable, and I was content. Then, one day, I bought a single ticket for the big jackpot. Honestly, it was just on a whim. I never expected anything to come of it. The day the numbers were drawn, I was just sitting at home watching TV when I checked the ticket. At first, I thought it was a mistake. The numbers matched. All of them. I sat there in disbelief for what felt like hours, realizing that I had just won the grand prize over $20 million. I was shaking, my heart racing, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like my life had purpose. I didn't know what to do first. My mind was racing with all the things I could buy, places I could visit, the freedom I would have. I called my parents immediately. They were always there for me growing up, and despite the tension in our relationship recently, more on that later, I thought they'd be just as excited for me as I was. I called my mom first. She didn't believe me at first, but when I showed her the ticket over video call, her face went from confusion to shock to pure excitement. Then, she immediately started talking about all the things I could do with the money. She was so happy for me, or so I thought. She went on and on about how I could pay off my student loans and buy a house, but as soon as she hung up, something started feeling off. The next call was to my dad. I figured he would be more reserved, but he was ecstatic. And then the real conversation started. Dad immediately said that this could be life-changing for our family, and I agreed. I thought he was going to talk about supporting my future, or maybe even giving back to the community, but that wasn't it. He quickly told me that the family had a unique opportunity that could set us up for generations. I had no idea what he meant by that. He began talking about how much my younger brother, Ryan, needed this money for his future. Ryan, my golden child brother, was always the center of attention in our family. Growing up, he could do no wrong. He got into the best schools, always had the newest gadgets, and everyone around him was constantly showering him with praise. In contrast, I was always the good enough kid. I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't extraordinary either. I worked hard, but Ryan's natural charisma and charm meant that everything seemed to come easy to him. So, when my dad said that this money could be used for Ryan's future, I was a bit confused. Ryan had just graduated college with a degree in business and was already starting to work for a tech company. Why did he need a handout when he was already on the track to success? Dad, however, was relentless. He said that Ryan was planning on going to grad school and that it would be a huge burden on the family's finances if we didn't help. And in the next breath, my dad started talking about how I could use the lottery money to help the family, as in, putting the majority of the money into a fund for Ryan's graduate school. The request was a lot to process. I sat there in disbelief, trying to understand what my dad was asking. He wanted me to give up my entire lottery win for Ryan's future, while my life would remain just as it was before, struggling to get by. He didn't even ask how I felt about it, and that's when the sinking feeling in my stomach grew stronger. My parents were treating me like my win wasn't mine. They were treating it like some kind of collective family asset. I told them I didn't feel comfortable with the idea. It wasn't that I didn't want to help my brother, but I'd never asked for this lottery money to begin with, and it didn't feel right to hand over everything I had worked for, just because my parents said it was for the greater good. That's when the situation took a sharp turn. My dad started getting angry. He kept insisting that I didn't understand the bigger picture. He said I was being selfish for wanting to keep the money to myself. At this point, I was in shock. They didn't care about what I wanted. They saw the money as a way to fix all of their problems, and I was just the means to an end. I tried to stand my ground. I explained that this win was an opportunity for me to change my life, to pay off my debts, buy a house, maybe even take a few vacations. I didn't want to throw all of that away just to fund Ryan's expensive education. But my parents didn't care. They wanted what they wanted. My mom's tone shifted. Instead of being excited for me, she started guilt-tripping me, saying things like, "This is what family is for, and you're being selfish when you have the means to help Ryan." That's when they kicked me out. They said I wasn't being a good son for refusing to help my brother, and they insisted I leave the family house. They made it clear that if I didn't comply with their wishes, I wouldn't be welcome anymore. I packed my things in a daze. I had no idea what to do. I thought they were just upset in the heat of the moment, but when I got in touch with them later, they said they were serious. I was out. I had no choice but to move into a small apartment, and I wasn't exactly prepared for it. My parents were my support system, and suddenly, I had nothing. I was cut off. I barely heard from them for the next few months, but what happened next was nothing short of karma. Despite their insistence on using the lottery money for Ryan's future, things started falling apart for him. Ryan, despite his charm and intelligence, quickly started getting into trouble at work. His company downsized, and he was one of the first to be let go. His plan to attend grad school fell through, and without the money from the lottery win, he was stuck with student loans and no clear path forward. As for my parents, things got worse for them too. They started facing financial strain. With Ryan's career falling apart, they had to scramble to pay their own bills. Their dream of a comfortable, wealthy life for Ryan went up in smoke. Meanwhile, my life was starting to get better. I paid off my debts, bought a modest home, and started living on my terms. I even managed to take a vacation abroad, something I'd never been able to afford before. It wasn't all smooth sailing, but things were falling into place. And the best part? I didn't have to sacrifice my future to make other people's dreams come true. I won't lie, I did feel a little guilty at first for not helping my parents. But watching them struggle, seeing Ryan fall from grace, made me realize that sometimes, people have to learn the hard way. I can't fix their mistakes, and I shouldn't have to sacrifice my happiness for their selfish desires. Karma has a funny way of working itself out. Now, my parents reach out to me occasionally, but the dynamic has shifted. They're no longer trying to take advantage of me. Ryan? He's still trying to figure things out, but I've learned to keep my distance. The best part? I'm finally living my life on my terms, and I'm not letting anyone take that from me. Update. So, a few weeks have passed since I last posted, and a lot has happened. To be honest, I wasn't expecting much after being kicked out, but things have taken some interesting turns. First off, I've managed to settle into my new apartment. It's small, but it's mine, and it's been a huge change from living with my parents. I've been focusing on my work and just trying to build some stability. The freedom is honestly amazing. I don't have anyone breathing down my neck telling me what to do with my money, my life, or my decisions. As for my parents, things have definitely taken a turn. My dad has called me a couple of times, but it's always been awkward. He's mostly talking about how things are tough for them right now. My mom texted me asking if I could come back and help out, but I'm not sure if she's referring to financial help or just emotional support. I can't believe the audacity, after everything that happened. Ryan, on the other hand, hasn't reached out at all. I think he's too embarrassed by what happened with the job situation. I know he's struggling, but I can't bring myself to feel bad for him at this point. I've worked hard to get where I am, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me, especially not after the way they treated me. I'm just trying to stay focused on my own goals right now. It's been a lot of work, but I'm finally feeling like I'm on the right path. Another update. So, some more updates on my situation. It's been a roller coaster, to say the least. I'm doing much better now, but the situation with my family has only gotten worse. My dad called me again last week, and this time, he sounded desperate. He's trying to convince me to come back and help save the family, especially now that Ryan's job situation is even worse than before. My dad's tone was so different from before. He was no longer demanding money or trying to guilt trip me. He sounded almost apologetic, but I'm not buying it. I told him that I've moved on and that I've worked hard for what I have now. I also told him that he needed to learn how to take responsibility for his own actions instead of expecting others to fix things for him. He didn't take it well, but it's not my problem anymore. As for Ryan, things have taken a massive dive. He's been posting a lot on social media about how he's struggling to make ends meet and how his dreams of grad school are shattered. I guess my parents' plan didn't work out as they thought. Honestly, I'm not sure if I should feel sorry for him or if he's just reaping what he sowed. I've been staying out of it, but I can't help but think that maybe this is karma playing out. I've been focusing on my future and looking into investing my lottery win wisely. I've even started doing some side gigs to expand my income. It's nice to be independent, and I'm really starting to see the fruits of my labor. My life may not be perfect, but it's definitely better than it was when I was constantly under my parents' thumb. Final update. Well, it's been about 6 months since I last updated, and I think it's safe to say that the situation with my parents is over. Things have settled down, and I've learned a lot about what I truly want from life. So here's the final chapter of this whole saga. My parents reached out to me once more, but this time it was in a very different tone. My dad called me last week and apologized. He admitted that they had been wrong, and he regretted kicking me out over something as ridiculous as money. He acknowledged that they had tried to use me as a pawn for Ryan's future, and that it wasn't fair to me. My mom was more reserved but also sent a text saying she hoped we could rebuild our relationship. I'll be honest, I didn't know how to feel. Part of me was relieved, but another part of me knew that I couldn't just let things go back to how they were before. So, I told my dad that I appreciated the apology, but I was done with the way they had treated me. I wasn't going to forget how they treated me over money. I made it clear that while I was open to rebuilding our relationship, it had to be on my terms. No more manipulation or selfishness. Ryan's situation hasn't improved much. He still hasn't found a new job, and I heard he's trying to work on starting his own business, but it's slow going. I'm sure he'll figure it out eventually, but I'm not going to be his safety net anymore. I've learned that I can't keep enabling his behavior, and I can't keep making sacrifices for someone who doesn't seem to care about the sacrifices I made. As for me, I've never been in a better place. I've continued to invest my money wisely, and I'm working toward goals that I've set for myself, not anyone else. I'm learning new skills, traveling when I can, and living life on my own terms. I don't need anyone to approve of my choices anymore. My life is my own, and I'm proud of the progress I've made. In the end, I guess karma really did have different plans. I didn't have to sacrifice my future to make everyone else happy. I've learned to put myself first, and it's made all the difference. Thanks for reading, everyone. I hope my story helps some of you realize that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even if it means walking away from family. Sometimes, you have to choose yourself, and that's not selfish, it's necessary.